Alright, so look, you may not have known this about me, but I'm a huge Zelda fan. And recently, E3 just happened. And, Nintendo, being the company they are, only showed off one game. And that one game was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. And I just wanted to explain my opinions on the game and my hopes for the game and what I think should be changed and what I think should be left alone. Before this starts, this is an unscripted video, and I just wanted to mention that because I may be saying and just pausing a lot in this video, and that's mostly because I'm just forming my thoughts. So I just like you to know that, alright? This is a new type of video that I'm just trying out for fun. Alright, so let's get into it. So starting with graphics, I have to say that it looks really pretty because honestly, no other Zelda game has had this scale of graphic. Basically, I think it looks really cool. And not only that, but in like every Zelda game has its own cool art style, and this one I think they explained it during the live streams they were hosting, but it's like a certain type of painting style and it looks really cool. A lot of people are kind of iffy on it, on whether it fits the game and whether or not it's good. But for me, I think it looks nice and I think it has a lot of potential. And for a game like this, it works really well. There's only one thing I'd have to say about the graphics that would be bad, and that is the shadowing. Because if you look at the screenshots of the game or just gameplay itself, the shadowing looks pretty iffy. Like it's not sharp, it's not refined. It just looks bad. And I'm hoping that they polish it before the game releases, because after all, there's a full year, 2017. Apparently the game's supposed to launch on the NX and Wii U at the same time. And supposedly they're going to be talking about the NX at E3 next year. So that pretty much proves that it'll be coming after June. So that's pretty much all I have to say about graphics. So we're going to move on to sound. You may think that sound is usually like a department where nothing really happens, like you talk about the small things. But in sound, there's actually quite a bit of stuff that they changed. And I'm going to talk about that. So first off, there's no constant music. In previous Zelda titles, you're roaming around Hyrule Field and there's this constant tune playing. A lot of people love that kind of stuff. They love listening to the music, and usually it's pretty catchy, and it fits the game well. But in this game, they decided to take away the constant music. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I mean, it's their game. They can do whatever they want. And the fact that they removed it, I mean, it's pretty big, and they had to add something in to make up for it. So another thing they added in was that there's a lot of noises in the game. So there's ambiance in it, and it's basically a lot of stuff combined to make it feel like the wilderness, because you can hear the wind blowing, or the birds chirping, or animals just roaming around, or you could hear the swish of the grass as you step through it, stuff like that, small stuff. And I bet already that playing with headphones, it makes it really cool, really immersive, and most people who have had hands-on time with the game, because I have not. I mean, look at me. You think I go to E3? But most people who have had hands-on time with the game say that wearing headphones and playing it is really cool because the sound is really good. So whether that makes up for the no constant music is debatable, but I just don't like it. So next, they confirmed pretty much through gameplay that there will be voice acting. And I'm not sure if this is true, but I remember I remember there was an interview with some bigwig at Nintendo who said that most of the major characters will have voice acting. So I'm assuming that's not Link, because Link mostly only screams. And so I'm assuming that's Zelda, Ganon, stuff like that. But let's talk about what everyone else thinks. So a lot of people have been arguing about whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, and it's a good argument. I'm not gonna lie. Most arguments on the internet are pretty stupid and they don't really have a reason. But this is all right. Let's start off with the people who support the voice act. So Nintendo has proved before that they have the ability to create good voice acting in video games. Look at Kid Icarus Uprising. That game had amazing voice acting, Even if it was cheesy at some points, it was still very good. The voice actors really nailed the characters to who they were, and they created the personalities when before they were just, pieces of cardboard. So they have the ability to create good voice acting in video games, but there's also a lot of room for failure because the voice actors they choose, they may do a really poor job and read the lines like robots, So there's also a lot of room for error because voice acting is pretty hands up, It's just a lot can go wrong and a lot can go right at the same time. As of my opinion, I would say it's a good thing. It's a good thing if they do it right. If they don't do it right, please, in the next game, do not do it again. Moving on. So next, the biggest section we have is gameplay. So for starters, the game is open world. No Zelda game before has been open world. Even though Nintendo, I think, I'm like 90% sure, said that Skyward Sword was supposed to be open world, it was not. It was a very linear story, You were pointed in the direction you have to go. There was no real exploration. And even when there was exploration, there wasn't much to explore, there wasn't much to find. This game seems to have done it right. There's a lot to see. Some people complain that maybe it just isn't filled enough, but let me remind you that this is the Wii U version. And supposedly, hopefully, this, if it's not, but basically the NX is supposed to be more powerful. So pretty much the NX can handle more, we would assume. And if that's the case, then it'd work all right. So I think open world is really cool. There's a lot of creativity can go into open world games, and I think it works really well, especially for Zelda. Next, there's no set items or weapons. Now this at the beginning, like I was a little surprised because this is a massive change, like a monumental change from the original staples in the series. So before, you would get your set sword, you would get your set items, and you would use them. You would go to a dungeon, you would find the item, then use the item in the dungeon, and then usually just use the item whenever you want it because you probably never need it again. And that's been the case since pretty much the beginning. But now they're changing it. So now there is no set weapon, and in fact weapons can break. So they encourage you pick up weapons that monsters may drop and use them, and every weapon breaks. Every single one, I don't know about the Master Sword if you were to get it, but most weapons break, and not only that, but in the demo, you can literally find the fire rod. Like if you take a path in under 10 minutes of starting the game, you can get the fire rod, which is usually an item you get, halfway through a normal Zelda game, So I like that a lot, I think that's really cool. Next, we have cooking and crafting. So this, I don't know how big a deal this is, but basically Nintendo is trying to set it so this Zelda is a survival game. And to do that, they specifically even showed that you no longer get hearts from cutting grass or money. They showed that you have to cook food and find food and eat it. That way you don't die. So when you take damage, you pretty much have to eat to get your life back. And not only that, but they added crafting. So basically what that means, it's like if you sit down, I think this is one of the recipes they showed in the live streams that I caught. So some guy put down firewood and then he put flint next to it, and then he slashed them together, and it created like a campfire, not like a forest fire, but a campfire. And then he could use that to sleep or whatever. And I think that's really cool because it's a game where it looks like you have to be traveling and just doing a lot of exploring. I think that's a neat addition. And it's also cool that you can put different ingredients together and cook food. So you can make like special potions that restore stamina and stuff like that. Next up is technology and the Sheikah Slate. So basically, every Zelda game seems to be maybe not the beginning, but almost every Zelda game has had some form of technology in it. And usually it's just a small thing, like one dungeon. It's just technology focused. But this whole game seems to be revolving around technology. And I think that's a really cool change of pace. So not only do you have like the wilderness and nature and stuff like that, but you have technology. And I want to see a difference. So like there could be like areas where it's technology based and areas where it's nature based. I think that'd be really cool. I mentioned earlier the Sheikah Slate, and the Sheikah Slate is basically an iPad in Zelda. That's pretty much what it is. And it's basically what it does in the game. What it actually does is it's like an all-purpose toolbox, sort of. Like it has your map. You could set waypoints and stuff like that. I think that's cool. You can mark enemies with it, mark certain spots you want to visit later that you may pass by. It's how you use the runes. So runes are basically like spells or like techniques you can use to do special things. Like a lot in the trailer, they showed Link like lifting up a giant metal bar, and that's with one of the runes. And you collect them by going to the shrines, which are like mini dungeons across Hyrule. And I think it's cool that you can build up this arsenal of techniques, and you may or may not use them later. So like if you see something that requires a rune and you have it, you can be like, oh cool, let me check out what this is. Or if you don't have it, you say, you know what, maybe I should go look for this rune. That way I can, access the secret in here. So it just fuels the exploration. Next up is the non-linear story. And I think this is really cool that the story is non-linear, because in brutal honesty, Skyward Sword was extremely linear. It pointed you in what direction you had to walk. It pretty much pointed you exactly. There was a move where you could point your sword and look for where you had to go. There was no exploration. Most areas were pretty linear. They showed you where to go. It was holding your hand most of the way. I think that usually most Zelda games are like that. But I think it should be non-linear, like the first game, because that game, just the fact that you're exploring, it adds to the immersion of the game, and it makes you just appreciate the game as a whole. Not only that, but they did it in a way where it's not impossible to forget about the story, because like in the beginning, the game points you down and it shows you this old man, and you go and talk to the old man, and he says, hey, you should go check out the temple over there. And that pretty much points you saying, if you want to progress the story, go to the temple. And you don't have to do that necessarily. You can be like, oh, well, I go to the temple to progress the story. I'll just go there later. Well, I want to go explore for a little bit. And then you can go and explore, So basically it like tells you where you have to go, but it leaves you free to the world and lets you explore wherever you want, And I think that's really cool. And the last part of gameplay is the physics. And physics are very, very cool. Because if you watch the gameplay, it's pretty hilarious that you can blow yourself up and see Link flying across the the world and then tumbling down a hill. I think it just adds a lot to the game, It's very cool because not only that, but let's say you place a rounded bomb on the floor and there's wind. It could blow the bomb, and then when it got close enough to an enemy, you could detonate it and kill the enemy. So physics also play a part in it. And not only physics, but there's also like weather and sneaking and stuff like that. So like if you're in a really cold area, Link will freeze to death if you're not wearing like heavy clothing and stuff like that. And not only that, but there's footsteps, which I mentioned earlier. And footsteps are the stealth section of the game, where basically if you don't want to go guns blazing and you feel you have to take out one enemy at a time, you can take out one enemy at a time, and go one by one. And you can sneak around enemies as well, so you don't necessarily have to go fight everyone. And I think that's really neat. Like if you come across an extremely powerful enemy and you don't want to fight it, you just want to get past it, you can totally do that, and go unnoticed. I also mentioned earlier that you have to change like to heavier clothing, and that's something new to this game that I think is really awesome too. Is that you can change clothing in the trailer. Like you see Link in his normal like blue clothes that he was always in the first teaser reveal, but it also shows him in like a suit of armor, and the fact that you can like change your armor if you want to like be strong, have higher defense, if you're gonna go fight a strong enemy, I think is really cool. And I really hope it also adds to the physics that way. Like let's say you're wearing like metal plated armor, so that way it depletes your stamina more when you're climbing rocks, or if you're like running around, or swimming. I think that'd be really cool, and I think it would add a lot. So that's pretty much all I have to say that I thought was noteworthy. Basically, my final thoughts are that I have really high hopes for this game, and I know it can succeed. And a lot of people are saying Nintendo won E3 with just one game, and I don't know if that's the one. I don't know if that's just the Zelda nostalgia or the overall hype influencing that decision. So, but for me, I think it's just because this game it looks very fun, and it looks new and interesting. And I just feel like every time Nintendo steps into a new genre of gaming, that it just impresses me somehow. Even if it's not something new, it just impresses me. But yeah, basically the only problems I have with it are that the game needs polishing, like I said earlier, like with the graphics, sound, gameplay. There's always something that could use a little polishing. But I think still that even if they didn't polish some of these things, I still think the game would hold up on its own. So that's pretty much it. And I hope you enjoyed this video, even with me rambling for, I don't even know how long I've been talking for. Wow, 20 minutes, whatever. But 20 minutes, jeez. I'm going to close off this video. I hope you enjoyed. And if you want to see more videos like this, where it's unscripted and just me speaking out loud without a script, then, go ahead and leave a comment and let me know. Anyways, that's it for now. So like the video, and if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a comment and subscribe if you like reviews and video games in general. All right, well, I'll see you later. Good night.